Good morning, metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown. Today we are talking about the latest studio album from Enterprise Earth entitled Death, an Anthology. This is the fifth full-length studio album from this American deathcore crew. I first came to know them back in 2022 with the release of their fourth studio album, The Chosen, which I mostly enjoyed. I think I remember giving it either a 3 or a 3.5 out of 5. I liked how it wove like melodic metalcore and like thrash and heavy metal guitar pyrotechnics and melodies and songwriting into like modern deathcore. And right off the bat, I will say that not only does Death, an Anthology capitalize on the strongest and the most successful elements of The Chosen, but it also takes Enterprise Earth into much more experimental and ambitious territory. With Enterprise Earth writing on social media, we consider Death, an Anthology to be our most expressive, intense, diverse, and finest work that Enterprise Earth has ever achieved so far. And I'm inclined to agree with most of those points. I'm gonna debate the finest point, but the rest of that, no contest. It really is equal parts erratic and elaborate, pulling influence from like sci-fi, technical thrash metal, from progressive groove metal, from symphonic black metal and symphonic blackened deathcore, and mathcore and experimental metal as well. Tons of special guests too, like Wes Houch from Glass Casket and Alluvial, Darius Tirani from Spite, Ben Dure from Shadow of Intent, Matt Heafy of Trivium fame, and man, when this thing fucking hits, it genuinely hits pretty fucking hard. Take for instance Casket of Rust, which is filled with glorious, sinister, melodic death metal style guitar leads, battering modern deathcore beatdowns, these screeching string instruments, and like also these segments of otherworldly prog metal. I like how it ends on this like very rustic, earthy, moody acoustic guitar as well. It's like the best elements of like the Black Dahlia Murder with post-World War X Carnifex all kind of like rolled into a ball and deep fried and smothered in some rich chocolatey sauce. Then there's Malevolent Force, which has this really like anxious, claustrophobic kind of like feel and vibe to it with these consuming, swallowing, progressive metal deathcore grooves. I love the use of these very eerie, atmospheric, dare I say even hypnotic textures and movements, adding a lot of weight to this. And I also really like Wes Houch's clean vocal work. I mean, it just communicates so much agony, but the mix intentionally subdues it, almost to make it sound like a voice crying out in agony from the void. Very clever, very spooky, very well done. And I'm really digging the more regal, epic, and extremely emotive, like, hooks and melodies and licks of Blood and Teeth as well. I really like how the track is constantly, like, progressing and evolving as it goes along, too. Like, we start off with this very simple but sweet and tender kind of ballad-esque moment, and then from there we transition into these, like, soaring, over-the-top, twin guitar, pyrotechnics. It's very big and bold and epic and cinematic, and from there, we dive into this very meaty, groove-laden melodic death metal and deathcore. And we also have these more quiet and spacious moments throughout the track, plus a massive chorus that feels on par with something Bring Me the Horizon would have unleashed back in the day. And honestly, I find myself really enjoying the intro track, Abyss, as well. I like the synthesized, cynic-esque clean vocals in the very beginning, and I love how it's constantly building upon a foundation of, like, these very over-the-top soaring guitars and these, like, hefty metallic chugs to create something, like, pretty epic and massive in size and scale. Like, I listen to this, and I have an image of, like, an anime character preparing for, like, the final fight in, like, the penultimate episode of, like, a season or a series, you know? Like, they're off to go fight whatever world-ending event is coming their way. Unfortunately, though, Death, an Anthology, almost just as often as it does hit hard, also misses in spectacular, bewildering fashion. Even in this album's best moments, even in the cuts we've mentioned thus far, this album is extremely overproduced, so much so that I literally won't listen to any argument suggesting otherwise. There's simply a lot going on, and while tracks like Casket of Ruin and Blood and Teeth can handle that, other tracks are often crushed by the weight of Enterprise Earth's ambition. Face of Fear, for instance, is filled with obnoxious and confusing assaults of glitchy, jagged, awkward, offbeat riffs and tempos and beats and textures. It's trying so hard to be so brutal and so manic that it just ends up feeling really stupid and random, like something I would have heard from I Wrestled a Bear once back in the day. The Reaper's Servant, as well, is a bit of a clusterfuck, jumping back and forth almost out of nowhere at times from this, like, explosive technical thrash death in the vein of Revocation and Vector, and this slower, more compressed apocalyptic deathcore in the vein of Humanity's Last Breath. Individually, these sounds and segments are fine, pretty cool, kind of great, actually. But together, I mean, they just don't fucking mix. Have you ever had a glass of orange juice after brushing your teeth? Well, this song feels like you're brushing your teeth and then out of nowhere you get kidnapped and you're strapped down and you're waterboarded by the CIA with orange juice. And then they let you go and then they do it all over again and it's like back and forth. That's what this song feels like to me. And though King of Ruination initially impresses with some weirder, more angular and technical Gojira-esque grooves, it also eventually bores as it just kind of settles into these waves of like ham-fisted deathcore riffage and some pretty straightforward, compressed Cookie Monster vocals. The last 2 minutes of this especially honestly feels like a somewhat reckless and random collection of like poundings and pummelings with a bunch of shit thrown on top of it to make it feel more important and chaotic than it actually is. On top of that, I feel like breakdowns for the most part are just kind of generic and unnecessary and tacked on. Also, I would add that a majority of the songs, even the best ones, could do with maybe at least a minute of grisly fat being trimmed right off. It's a shame because I do think there's a lot of stuff to like here and there's a lot of undeniable, like, talent and musical prowess on display, but unfortunately at times Enterprise Earth find themselves crushed under the weight of their ambition. I'm feeling a solid, middle-of-the-road 3 out of 5. I would disagree that this is Enterprise Earth's finest album to date, but it is their most diverse, it is their most expressive, it is their most dynamic, it is their biggest and their boldest. I am genuinely curious to see where Enterprise Earth go from here. They've got pretty much a brand new lineup. Once again, no original or founding members left, and there's definitely a lot of room to grow and tweak as time goes on. It may not be a revolutionary deathcore masterpiece, but it is an interesting record with a lot of interesting ideas, warts and all. 3 to 5, it's decent. Check it out, maybe in small bursts, you know, see how you feel, why not? What else do you gotta do today? If you had anything better to do, you wouldn't be here, so I don't know, fuck you. And that is it for the Metal Meltdown. I'm not an expert, nor do I claim to be. So what do you think? Do you like this record? Do you not like this record? And what do you want to hear from me next? And thank you for watching. Make sure you press subscribe right here so you get updates on the Metal Meltdown fucking immediately. And as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.